Welcome to episode 6 of Sussex Sport Weekly. I'm Matt Poll, and as ever, I'm joined by Brighton and Hove Albion writers Derren Howard and Frankie Elliott and Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford. And this week, we're joined by Sussex Sport reporter Steve Bone. Brighton boosted the hopes of European qualification with a thumping 4-0 Premier League victory over struggling West Ham. The win over the Hammers takes Albion to within 7 points of fourth place Tottenham, who have played 3 games more than the Seagulls. This week sees Brighton visit fourth from bottom Leeds on Saturday before a huge M23 derby game at home to Crystal Palace on Wednesday evening. Meanwhile, things keep going from bad to worse for Crawley Town. They lost 1-0 at high-flying Northampton before going down 3-0 at Sutton on Tuesday evening. The Reds remain second from bottom, but are now just 2 points clear of bottom club Rochdale going into this Saturday's huge home game against Harrogate Town, who are now 9 points clear of Crawley. But first this week, we'll start at Sussex non-league club Peacehaven and Telscombe. They host Wiltshire outfit Corsham Town on Saturday in the quarterfinals of the FA Vase and are just 2 games away from Wembley. It's a massive game for the club, Steve, but for the uninitiated, could you give us the lowdown of their FA Vase run and how they're getting on in the league so far this season?
Yeah, of course. As you say, massive game for them on Saturday. They are 2 games from Wembley. This is the quarter-final. They've been lucky enough to be drawn at home against a team from the same non-league step as them. It's difficult always to judge one team or a team from one league against another at this level, so we don't quite know how hard a game that's going to be. But yeah, they've already come through 7 rounds to get this far. They started way back in September. The last 3 rounds have all been away from home. They've had a couple of penalty shootouts that they've won. The keeper has been a bit of a hero. So done really well to get this far. And they just, everybody just wants them to go not 1 step further, but 2 steps further and get to Wembley. We all remember so well Littlehampton Town last year. A couple of us were there covering. They were the first Sussex team to get to the FA Vase final at Wembley. Wouldn't it be great if Peacehaven can follow in their footsteps so quickly? We're certainly rooting for them.
You interviewed Peacehaven skipper Ross Barkley and manager Mark Shutt ahead of Saturday's Cup clash, which you can read in print this Friday in the Sussex Express and online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. What's the prevailing mood within the tie camp going into the Corsham tie? Is kind of the weight of the tie hit home, or are they kind of not feeling the pressure?
I think the weight of it is certainly there. They know how big a game it is, and they know they're going to have a huge crowd there cheering them on. It won't just be Peacehaven fans; there'll be some Brighton fans, and there'll be people from further afield coming along. Their view is that this is going to be a very difficult game, probably the hardest game of the run so far. They've done their homework on Corsham. They think it's going to be a very sort of hard physical battle. Mark Shutt, the manager, says very much we're the underdogs for this tie and for the Vase. The bookies have almost written off Peacehaven, although I sometimes think, do bookies really know much about football at that level, or are they just sort of guessing? I don't think they study it too closely. There's not a big market there. The skipper, though, is saying, we can look at what we've done so far. It's team spirit, togetherness that has got us this far. We've had odds against us in previous rounds. That may well be the case again this Saturday. We just need to remember what's got us this far and just see if it can get us a little bit further. So I think they're confident, quietly confident. They're not being gung ho, and they're not saying, we're at home. Of course we're going to win. They know it's going to be a hard game, but they think they've got a chance, and good for them. And let's hope they're right in that respect.
A quick word on Corsham, Steve. How are they getting on this season? It's obviously an area that we don't really know that well.
Yes, no, I had to do a bit of research on them when the draw was made. Didn't even know where Corsham was, but I now know it's over in Wiltshire, not too far from Chippenham and Swindon. They are 5th in the Hellenic League Premier Division, so that is the same standard of non-league as Peacehaven, who are in the SCFL Premier. Corsham are 5th in the league, but they've actually got quite a few games in hand, not least because of the Vase run. They've only lost 3 league games all season. Their Vase run has been similar in a way to Peacehaven's, in that they've had some very close games, mixture of home and away wins. So it's hard to judge. You look at the 2 teams together, because they're playing in different leagues, it's very difficult to know who's got the edge. People say the Hellenic League is a bit stronger than the SCFL, covers a wider area. There are more counties that feed into that, so that may be correct, but I guess we'll find out on Saturday, won't we?
As you mentioned earlier, last season saw Littlehampton Town famously reach last season's FA Vase final, but sadly they couldn't go that extra way and beat Newport Tagnell Town at Wembley. Again, as you mentioned, there are some big teams left in this season's tournament, including Bury AFC, who are the Phoenix club of two-time FA Cup winners Bury. Do you think Peacehaven have it in them to go one better than Littlehampton and bring the cup back home to Sussex?
I think it's a big ask, isn't it? Especially when you've got a team like Bury there who have certain sort of certain strength behind them and that fan base. But I think when you get to this stage of a competition like the FA Vase, I think it's quite open actually, and I think it's why not dream for Peacehaven? They've played at a higher level before. They were in the Isthmian League a few years back. I actually saw them win the Sussex Senior Cup in 2014. They beat Bognor in the final at the Amex down there. So, they know, I know that's a different group of players, but they know what big games are about. They know what's in front of them. So, I think Littlehampton have been a great source of inspiration to them. They saw this little team from Sussex beat everybody in their wake to get to Wembley. And I think that has probably sort of shown them that they're saying, well, why can't we do the same? And it's got them this far. Let's just hope they can go a bit further.
Brilliant, thank you, Steve. Well, you can read all the reaction from Saturday's game at sussexworld.co.uk/sport and in the Sussex Express, which will be out next Friday. Looking at Brighton and Hove Albion, they snapped a 2-game winless run in the Premier League with an excellent victory over West Ham. Brighton were missing Roberto De Zerbi, who was serving a 1-game touchline ban after his red card at the end of the defeat by Fulham. But the Seagulls didn't really miss his absence at all, did they, Derren?
No, they didn't seem to, Matt. In fact, Joel Veltman said afterwards that on the match day, it doesn't really matter who's in the dugout because, they're so well prepared by De Zerbi in training. And it's just a case of going out and trying to deliver the game plan that they've been working on all week. In fact, Veltman's actual quote was after the match, "It could have been my mum in the dugout for all the difference it makes." So he didn't really miss his manager barking orders at him from the touchline, I think. In fact, afterwards, De Zerbi, he sort of continued the mum theme in his post-match press. Our reporter Sam Morton asked De Zerbi what it was like to sort of deliver his instructions. He's usually so animated on the touchline, but he was way back in the stands and speaking to the coaching staff on his phone. And he was asking what he was saying to his coaching staff on the phone. And De Zerbi just said, nothing. I was just on the phone to my mum. So he wasn't giving too much away, but it's, so maybe we can, it was a good 3 points. So they played very well against West Ham. And it's probably one of the best displays since De Zerbi's taken over and West Ham's heaviest defeat in the Premier League for some time. So, but like you say, De Zerbi loves to be in the thick of it, and I'm sure he'll be glad to be back on the touchline at Ellen Road this Saturday.
Brighton have now scored 43 Premier League goals this season, which is one more than they managed in the entirety of the last campaign, and we still have 15 games to go this season. And what do you put Brighton's new ruthlessness in front of goal down to, Frankie? Is it a case of more Roberto De Zerbi magic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jamie Carragher touched on it on Monday Night Football this week before the Brentford Fulham game. Brighton were always seen as were lauded, in fact, for Graham Potter's work for taking a team of Brighton's size and making them such an attractive team to watch. Whoever they played, they're always seen as a team that kept the ball, that played nice football and created a lot of chances against any side they played, whether that be a top 6 team or a club of the similar size. Obviously, that issue was that they couldn't score goals. But what we've seen now is De Zerbi's taken that model and he's expanded on it even further. So Brighton are keeping the ball on average, possession-wise, more than they ever did under Potter, which was such an amazing achievement. They're keeping the ball as much as teams such as Manchester City and Arsenal. What does that mean? Well, that means that they have the opportunity to create as many chances as those teams. So the number of big chances per game, on average, has doubled under De Zerbi from 1.6 to 3. So the quality of chances is increasing, and therefore the quality of chance increasing, the more likely you are to score goals. And that's why the shot conversion rate, which was 17th in the league, is now 5th. So it's a fantastic achievement, and it's all down to De Zerbi and how he set up his players. I think the two main key factors to this has been his centre-backs. I think their ability to play passes under pressure and find players in space in dangerous areas, whether that be McAllister and Caicedo or to the wide areas, has been phenomenal. So Lewis Dunk, Webster and Colwell have been fundamental to helping Brighton start attacks, and also their crossing from wide areas. I think we've seen a lot this season. We've seen goals such as Matoma's header against Bournemouth and Ferguson's against Leicester, crosses into the box, headed goals. We've also seen Matoma's goal against West Ham this weekend, low-driven crosses into the box to find players at the back stick for tap-ins. The quality of their deliveries has created these chances which are much easier to score. So yeah, it's a testament to how they've been set up by De Zerbi, and I think we've only just started to see this starting to evolve, because this is his style of football: attacking football, scoring more goals than the opposition. It's not a case of scoring one and shutting up shop. I think there's more to come. I think we're going to see an expanding attacking Brighton side, so it's very, very exciting for fans going to watch them at the Amex.
Yes, you mentioned how Roberto De Zerbi set up. He sprung a bit of a surprise on Saturday when he started Jason Steele ahead of established Brighton number one Robert Sanchez. Steele was hardly put a foot wrong as Brighton's cup keeper, but I don't think many people expected to see De Zerbi drop Sanchez. How did Steele acquit himself against the Hammers, Derren?
Yeah, he did very well, very well. He played well against Stoke in the cup game and followed that into the West Ham game. But yeah, you're right. It was a surprise. I think many people had to look twice on the team sheet when they saw Steele on there, thinking, is this a cup game, or are we in the Premier League? But it's but once again, I feel it was good management from De Zerbi. Sanchez has made a few howlers, perhaps his most costly when they drew at Palace. And I think if De Zerbi had dropped him in the next match for Fulham, that would have kind of sent out the wrong signal. Like it probably could have ruined Sanchez's confidence entirely if he'd have been dropped for the next match. But Steele had been the cup keeper, and I think De Zerbi knew that the Stoke game was coming up, so it gave him the perfect chance, really. And Steele played very well at Stoke. He was good with his feet, and his distribution was great between the defenders, and he also kept a clean sheet. So I think the combination of that, and that he could trust Steele to come in, and Sanchez's wobbly form, I feel led to the decision for Steele to play against West Ham. And yeah, once again, he's been impressive in training. He played well, kept another clean sheet, and yeah, you'd have to say now it's a big challenge for Sanchez. And I think De Zerbi will stick with Steele for the Leeds match, and also likely for the one against Palace as well. So, which are both two huge games for Albion if they are to, go for the European qualification.
Post-match, De Zerbi said after the West Ham game, he said, "Jason is now playing better than Robert. Jason was fantastic in build-up in my style. Maybe he's closer than Robert to my style." It all seems like great news for Jason Steele, but where does that leave Robert Sanchez at Brighton, Frankie? I
think he's still in a good place. I think he's fine. I think this is more a success story for Jason Steele than any detriment to Robert Sanchez. I think if you're looking at what a classic number two goalkeeper is, you never really associate them with putting pressure for the starting spot. They always seem to be a keeper that is there to support the number one and then do their job in cup games and sort of just be there to sort of give the keeper a rest for those games. But I think Jason Steele has actually taken on the responsibility and seen it as an opportunity to get into the first team. I think we've heard noises coming out from Brighton that he's a great character in the dressing room and he's almost a leader in there. And when he has played in the FA Cup and the EFL Cup this year, he's really shone. And not just in the fact he's kept clean sheets like recently against Stoke. He's been brilliant on the ball. And as we've just discussed previously, that's really important to be for all 11 players to be able to keep possession, to keep the high 60+% possession stats that he wants. He needs his keeper to be playing out from the back. And I think Jason Steele is better than Sanchez at playing out from the back. Whether he's a better goalkeeper overall, it's too early to say. But Jason Steele has, like I say, he's taken his opportunity and De Zerbi has rewarded him for that. For Sanchez, this is what all young players go through outfield and in goal. They are taken out of the team, they're brought back in the team. It's laying down the gauntlet to say, you need to improve. This is what I want you to do as a keeper. You need to work on it. Sanchez is still very, very young as a goalkeeper. He's only 25. He's got a lot of time to improve. And we've seen that he could be a top goalkeeper for years to come. The issue now lies is whether he's willing to stick around and be a number two if Jason Steele becomes the number one goalkeeper for the rest of the season and the start of next season, I can't imagine Sanchez will be too happy with that. And then it's a case of, do Brighton cash in? Because I'm sure there's a lot of clubs out there that are willing to take Sanchez on and pay a pretty high price for it. He's got 2 years left on his contract coming up in this summer. So it's like I say, it's more a testament to Steele that he's got his place in the starting lineup. But it does raise some questions as to where Brighton go from here in the transfer market in this summer.
Yes, this Saturday sees Brighton make the trip to struggling Leeds. They're above the Premier League drop zone and goal difference, but performances have slightly improved under new head coach Javi Gracia. What are you expecting from the game at Ellen Road, Derren?
I'm expecting more of the same, really, against Leeds from Brighton. It will certainly be a lively atmosphere at Ellen Road, but I expect Brighton to keep the ball, dominate possession, and then it's a case of if they can create chances, which they have of late, then, can they take them? Against West Ham, they certainly did. But, the previous matches against Palace, Fulham, and perhaps Bournemouth, they struggled in that area. So, if it's more of West Ham, then I think that they've got that clinical edge. Then they can go to Leeds and be very confident of getting another 3 points. But the change at Leeds is an interesting one. It always seemed a bit sort of chaotic under Jesse Marsh. You always knew they would be playing at 100 mile an hour, but tactically they perhaps weren't too great. So I think there's been a change in that regard, and you get the feeling Garcia is probably better in that respect. And if they can keep that intensity that they had under Marsh, but just add some guile to go with it, then they could certainly be dangerous, I think, in front of their home fans. But it's going to be a tough game, but I'm sure the Brighton fans will go there in numbers. They've been great on the road this season, the away support. And 3 points for them would be huge, as they try to get into Europe. So and a victory at Ellen Road, that certainly set up the Palace game nicely for Wednesday night as well. So.
Yes, speaking of the Crystal Palace game, they come to the Amex 4 days later. At the time of recording, the Eagles are 12th, but they haven't won in the Premier League since New Year's Eve. On paper, Frankie, you think it'd be a case of how many Brighton get in front of a raucous Amex home crowd, but I'm sure it will not be the case if the previous game this season is anything to go by.
Yeah, I mean, no wins in 9, 1 win in the last 12, and 4 goals in those 12 games. I mean, it couldn't be a better opposition to play. So I'm going for a Palace win. No, I'm joking. But I have to say, these games coming up, obviously, I think they've got Brentford at home in a couple of weeks after the international break, Brian. But they've got Leeds, who've won 1 in 12, Palace, who haven't won any in 9 games, and Bournemouth, who have won 1 in 10. Those are 3 of the next 4 teams. If Brighton are really serious about challenging for Europe, with their games in hand and where they set themselves up, they have to be winning these games. It's not a case of, we played well, we should have won, the performances there. Those are the games they have to win, because after that, they play Tottenham and Chelsea away, they play Manchester City at home, and they still have rearranged games against Newcastle and Manchester United. So it's not going to be a very easy run-in. But these games coming up against teams that are really struggling, Brighton need to show their quality. They've scored a lot of goals recently. They've shown that they, are playing good football, but they need to be ruthless. And the run against Palace, their form against Palace has not been very good. But this is now the time where they have to end that run if they're really serious about contending for Europe.
Moving on to Crawley Town, they fell to 2 away defeats at Sutton and Northampton this week. Those losses were compounded by wins for relegation rivals Harrogate and Rochdale, and Hartlepool earning a point on Saturday. Quite simply, Mark, where do Crawley go from here? They've lost 6 in a row in the league. What can be done to get them out of the mire, which is probably the £1 million question Crawley fans are asking at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm bored of this successful Brighton chat, so let's get talking about Crawley Town. I was at the Sutton game on Tuesday night, and it was dire. It was absolutely dire. You can't really blame the players. They just look full of self. They've got no confidence at all. It was just really demoralising to watch, and the players just looked demoralised as well. I don't know where they go from here. I mean, I think it was Steve Herbert, one of our columnists. He shared a picture the other day, because about 2 weeks ago there was 6 teams that were probably involved in the relegation battle, And after Sutton on Tuesday night, he just scribbled out the rest of the table, and it was the bottom three teams: Hartlepool, Crawley, and Rochdale. I mean, they've got Harrogate on Saturday, who were one of those teams, but they had a really good win against Doncaster on Tuesday night, away from home. And they haven't lost in 3 Harrogate, so it's going to be a really tough game for Crawley on Saturday. I mean, and I know they're all tough games, etc. The manager will say that every week, whoever they're playing. But you just can't see where that next 3 points comes from. And they've got home games now against Harrogate, then Doncaster, away at AFC Wimbledon, and then home at Grimsby. If they don't pick up at least 7 points from those 3 home games, that's it. It's all over. I mean, a lot of the fans will tell you that it's all over already. They're down. But they've still got 2 games in hand over Hartlepool, who are only 3 points ahead of them. And they've still got 2 games in hand over Rochdale. So but it is watching the players on Saturday. Yes, they tried. I'm not questioning their professionalism at all. But they just look like they lack so many confidence. 6 defeats on the trot. It's not looking good. And yeah, they need to pull something out of the bag on Saturday. If they can get a win against Harrogate, then suddenly it's all change again. And the fans might have a little bit of hope. But anything but a win on Saturday, and yeah, you fear for them.
Well, they were booed off against Sutton, is that right? And I think that the chants of "We Want Wag Me Out" was sung in the stands, and co-owners Preston Johnson and Evan Smith have been radio silent for some time now, which most fans have taken as them losing complete interest in the club. I know that Preston has had issues with health, but why have Wagney been so reluctant to be open and transparent with fans as they promised at the start of the season?
I don't know the exact answer without speaking to Preston and that, but I mean, Eben has never been the front-facing person, so it's very rare you would have heard from him anyway. He was at the fans forum at the beginning of the season, but it's Preston who was the face of the operation, as it were, along with Hunter Orrell, who on a little bit of an exclusive. I've got an interview with Hunter ready to go up on Sussex World in the next sort of couple of hours. So he said a few interesting things. He's speaking personally, but he's not speaking on behalf of WAGME. But they do care about the club. But I think one of the reasons why they've gone a bit radio silence, I mean, we spoke to Preston Johnson when Scott Lindsay was appointed in January, and that was the last time I think we've ever heard anything sort of properly from them. But I mean, I tried to contact Preston yesterday. I got a message from a number I didn't recognise, and he said, "Hi, it's Preston here. I understand you've been trying to get hold of me. I had to change my number because somebody leaked my phone number and I've been getting harassed and abused." So he had to change number. And I mean, publicly, he said that his family's been threatened. He's been threatened with death threats and that. I mean, yes, they're the owners of the club, and yes, they need to sort of show that they're passionate in that. But when you're getting stuff like that, I can imagine it's easy to go to ground and just So I have sympathy from them on that part. But because they were so transparent and open when they first joined, they were doing Twitter lives every week. They were taking fans to the pub and buying them pints and that. And then suddenly it just stopped as soon as it started going a bit badly. So I can see the fans' frustration and not hearing from them. But the CTSA, the Crawley Town Supporters Alliance, are meeting with Eben tomorrow night. And Preston tells me that they're going to, they're going to release a statement after that. So I'm assuming it'll be a joint statement. What was asked, what was answered, and then see what the intentions are from WAGME, because it really hasn't gone quite as well as they'd hoped. Well, not quite as well. It hasn't gone anywhere near what they wanted to happen. They promised promotion within 2 years, or they will step down as chairman of the club, and it looks like it will be that well. But if they do go down, they might still get promoted in the first 2 years they've been there. So. But but it was just very quickly. It was interesting on Tuesday night because the fans were very vocal. They were supporting the team throughout the game. There's no question of that. They were cheering the lads on and everything. But at the end of the game, some of the players looked like they were starting to walk towards the fans to applaud them, and a lot of the fans were telling them to go away. And it was and a lot of fans walked away. The only player that did go forward and go near them was Jack Powell, who carried on applauding them, even though they were shouting abuse and that. And I know they're not having a go at the players, but it was, it was quite something to see.
Well, I must admit, I thought that Scott Lindsay would be the man to steer Crawley away from danger, but since his appointment in January, his League Two record reads 1-1, drawn 1, lost 7. Is it unreasonable to suggest, Mark, that a bad set of results against Harrogate, Wimbledon and Doncaster in the next 3 games could potentially see him out the door before what could potentially be a must-win game against Rochdale, who are currently the only side below the Reds on the 25th of March?
Yeah, I think if we get to Rochdale and they haven't won any of those games, I think it doesn't even become an important... Well, it is an important game, but I don't think it becomes that important game because I think they will almost be down. But I would be surprised if they got rid of Scott Lindsay before then, because even if the results do go against them, because they made such a big deal of him coming in and that he is the man to sort of change the culture at the club and that. And it would be odd if they're so intent on changing the culture of the club and what's going on behind the scenes as well as on the pitch, to then suddenly get rid of him again, even though because the results haven't gone his way. But at what point does a manager's job become untenable? It's just, it's a very difficult one. I would be surprised if Scott Lindsay goes before the end of the season. But we will see. And remember, he has got injuries. We've got Ben Gladwin out with James Tilley. Actually, that was the one bright point on Tuesday night, was James Tilley coming back from injury, coming on as a sub. He really provided the spark. If they can have him fit for the rest of the season. Chris Galley told me that Ben Gladwin, they're hoping, could be back this weekend. He's missed a couple of games and they have missed him in the centre of that park. So, and we just need Dom Telford, Ashley Naddison and Remy Ote in the attacking areas just to have a bit of confidence and really just get that goal that sparks something for the rest of the season. So, but yeah, no, going back to your original question, I'd be surprised whatever happens if Lindsay goes before the end of the season.
Very, very quickly, as mentioned, Crawley host Harrogate, who are now seemingly clear of relegation. How do you see that one going?
Looking at how they performed on Tuesday night and previously against Carlisle at home, the previous when they were 4-0 down at half-time, I just can't see where that win is coming from at the moment. But if they can have Gladwin back, if Tilley starts, it's the first of their 2 games for £2, so they're hoping for a huge crowd. If that crowd can really get behind them, and I know they will during the game. Obviously, as soon as it starts going a bit badly, that's when the wag me out chants start. But they've got a chance, but it's a very tough one. And Harrogate will come here smelling blood, I imagine.
Very quickly, score predictions. Derren, starting with Brighton. How do you see them getting on at Leeds and against Palace this week?
Pretty confident, especially how they performed against West Ham. They really had that cutting edge. Matoma looks as sharp as he has in the last couple of matches. So I think 2-0 at Leeds, and then I think they'll get the job done against Crystal Palace as well for a change. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 home victory against Palace as well.
Frankie, how do you see Albion getting on this week?
Yeah, like Derren, I think the West Ham performance and result was brilliant, and I think they can build on that. I think I'm hoping to see the return of Levi Colwell this week as well, which would be a massive boost to the side. So at Leeds, I'm going for a 2-0 win. I think they will make hard work of Palace still, but I think they will finally get that victory, and I think I'm going to go for 2-1 in that one.
How do you see Crawley getting on against Harrogate in terms of the score prediction, Mark?
I think I don't want to be too negative, but I think a 2-2 draw, a score draw. I just can't see how they're performing at the moment, how they get a win. But I hope they win, but I think it will be a draw on Saturday.
And finally, Steve, Peacehaven, Corsham. Are Peacehaven on their way to Wembley?
I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to go for a really tight, scrappy 1-0 win, which they will be delighted about. That's what Littlehampton did in the quarterfinal last year. It was very tight. They scored, I think, about 10 minutes to go. Peacehaven would love to do the same thing, and then they are only 1 game from Wembley. So, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, thank you very much, chaps. Next Sunday sees Lewis host Manchester United in the Women's FA Cup quarterfinals, lying in front of the BBC cameras. So we'll be previewing that game. But yes, thank you very much for joining us. For all the latest sports news, go to sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Have a good week, and we'll see you all next week.